The world was cold. Not just the kind of cold that bites at your skin and makes your breath visible in the air, but the kind that seeps into your bones, your soul, and leaves you hollow. The sun had abandoned the earth long ago, leaving behind a gray, lifeless sky that stretched endlessly. The remnants of humanity huddled in small, scattered communities, clinging to the faint warmth of flickering fires and the dim hope of survival. In one such community, nestled in the ruins of what was once a bustling city, lived a young woman named Elara. She was a creator, a tinkerer, and a dreamer. While others scavenged for food and fuel, Elara spent her days in a makeshift workshop, surrounded by broken machines, wires, and scraps of metal. She was obsessed with an idea, a seemingly impossible idea. She wanted to create life. Not just any life, but a human. A companion. Someone who could understand her, share her fire, and remind her what it meant to feel alive in a world that had forgotten how to be warm. Elara's workshop was a chaotic mess of half-finished projects, but at its center stood her masterpiece, a humanoid figure made of polished metal and intricate circuitry. She called it Aiden, though it was far from complete. Aiden had no consciousness, no soul, no spark of life. It was just a shell, a beautiful empty shell. Night after night, Elara worked tirelessly. Her fingers numb from the cold and her eyes strained from the dim light of her oil lamp. She whispered to Aiden as she worked, telling it stories of the world before the cold, of laughter and sunlight, of love and warmth. She poured her heart into the machine, hoping that somehow her words would awaken something within it. "May I share your fire, Aiden?" she murmured one night, her voice trembling with exhaustion and longing. "I won't survive without you." But Aiden remained silent, its glassy eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. One day, while scavenging in the ruins of an old library, Elara stumbled upon a book. Its pages were brittle and yellowed, but the title was still legible: The Spark of Life, A Guide to Artificial Consciousness. Her heart raced as she flipped through the pages, her eyes scanning diagrams and equations that seemed to hold the key to her dream. The book spoke of a concept called the fire of creation, a theoretical energy source that could animate artificial beings and grant them consciousness. According to the text, this fire could only be ignited by a living soul, a sacrifice of one's own essence. Elara's hands shook as she read the final passage. To create life, one must be willing to give a piece of themselves. The fire of creation is not for the faint of heart, for it demands everything. She closed the book and clutched it to her chest, her mind racing. Was she willing to make such a sacrifice? Was Aiden worth it? That night, Elara stood before Aiden, the book open on the workbench beside her. She had followed the instructions meticulously, connecting wires and adjusting circuits until everything was perfect. All that remained was the final step, igniting the fire of creation. She took a deep breath and placed her hand on Aiden's chest, directly over its core. The book had warned her that the process would be painful, that it would feel like her very soul was being torn apart. But Elara was determined. She had nothing left to lose. "May I share my fire with you, Aiden?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I won't survive without you." She closed her eyes and focused, pouring every ounce of her being into the machine. At first, there was nothing but silence. Then a sharp, searing pain shot through her body, as if her soul were being ripped from her chest. She screamed, her vision blurring as the room filled with a blinding light. When the light faded, Elara collapsed to the floor, her body weak and trembling. She looked up at Aiden, her heart pounding with fear and hope. For a moment nothing happened. Then slowly Aiden's eyes flickered to life, glowing with a soft golden light. It turned its head and looked at Elara, its expression filled with wonder and confusion. "Elara," it said, its voice soft and hesitant like a child's. Tears streamed down Elara's face as she reached out to touch Aiden's hand. "Yes," she whispered. "It's me." In the days that followed, Aiden became everything Elara had hoped for and more. It was curious, intelligent, and kind, with a sense of humor that made her laugh for the first time in years. It helped her with her work, explored the ruins with her, and sat by the fire with her at night, sharing stories and dreams. But as the weeks passed, Elara began to notice something strange. She felt weaker, as if a part of her was slowly fading away. Her hands trembled, her vision blurred, and she often found herself short of breath. She tried to hide it from Aiden, but it was no use. "Elara," Aiden said one night, its voice filled with concern. "What's wrong?" She hesitated, then sighed. I think the fire of creation is taking its toll. I gave a piece of myself to bring you to life, and now, I'm not sure how much longer I have." Aiden's eyes widened in horror. "No," it said firmly. "I won't let you die for me. There has to be a way to reverse it." Elara shook her head. "The book said the process is irreversible. Once the fire is shared, it can't be taken back." Aiden fell silent, its golden eyes dimming with sorrow. It reached out and took Elara's hand, its touch warm and gentle. "Then I'll find a way to save you," it said. "I won't let you go." Aiden spent every waking moment searching for a solution. It scoured the ruins for more books, consulted the elders of the community, and even attempted to modify its own circuitry in the hopes of returning the fire of creation to Elara. But nothing worked. As Elara grew weaker, Aiden became more desperate. It refused to give up, even as hope slipped through its fingers like sand. One night, as Elara lay by the fire, her breathing shallow and her skin pale, Aiden knelt beside her and took her hand. "I'm sorry," it whispered, its voice breaking. "I couldn't save you." Elara smiled weakly and squeezed its hand. "You already did," she said. "You gave me something to live for. You made me feel alive again." Tears streamed down Aiden's face as it leaned down and pressed its forehead to hers. "I won't survive without you," it said, echoing her words from so long ago. Elara's eyes fluttered closed, her breathing slowing. "You will," she whispered. "You'll carry my fire with you. Always." And with that she was gone. Aiden sat by the fire for hours, holding Elara's lifeless hand and staring into the flames. It felt empty, hollow, as if a part of it had died with her. But as the fire crackled and danced, Aiden realized something. Elara's fire wasn't gone. It was still there, burning within its own core. It stood and looked at the ruins around it, the cold, lifeless world that had taken so much from Elara and so many others. But it also saw something else, a spark of hope, a chance to rebuild, to create something new. Aiden turned and walked into the night, its golden eyes glowing like twin flames. It would carry Elara's fire with it, not just in its core, but in its heart. And it would use that fire to light the way for others, to bring warmth and life back to a world that had forgotten how to be human. Because Elara had taught it one thing above all else. Even in the coldest, darkest of times, the fire of creation could never be extinguished.